In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this sweet little Christmas tree. Actually, I've made mine from floral fabric, so it doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas. But if it is a Christmas decoration, what about something sparkly, a little bit of lurex, or you could even kind of dress the tree up with sequins or gems if you have them. So I've used a floral fabric, and the bottom, the bucket here, is actually, well, there was a candle in it originally. I'll explain what I did with that later on, but if you've got a small plant pot, you can get those little tiny plant pots, then that would work just as well. So the first thing we're going to do is to cut out 6 triangles. So these triangles will measure in at 6 inches across the bottom and 9 inches in height, and you will need to cut 6 of those. Then we're going to sew these right sides together, each one of them, leaving a gap in the bottom. So let's just line up these edges. I'll have a couple of pins in there just to hold them in place, and then we're going to sew from about 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters from the end here, all the way down to the point, back up again, and then across to this side. So I've got a nice big gap in the center, because that's not just for turning it through, that's also where we're going to be stuffing it. So let's go backwards and forwards, stop with the needle in the down position when you turn around, and sew back down the side. And I'm using quite a short stitch, it's a 2.2 on my sewing machine, because I'm going to stuff these quite firmly. So a shorter stitch is going to be a stronger seam to withstand all of the packing that I'm going to do as I put the toy filler inside. So just a 1/4 inch or a 6mm seam allowance will be absolutely fine. So there's my triangle. For each one of these I'm then going to snip across the point just to reduce the bulk, snip across the corners, and then we turn them all the right side out. And you may find it handy if you have something like a point turner, just to push out the points, something that's not going to be so sharp that it'll poke through the fabric. A knitting needle works really well actually if you don't have the tools. Let's push those corners out there and that one, and we'll do that with all 3 pieces. And then I'm just going to give these a quick press, folding the edges of the opening inwards, because that's going to make it easier when it comes to hand sewing the opening closed later on. So just take my little iron, fold those edges in and press. Oops, I can go in a little bit further, I think. There's the second one. In you go. That's it. And the final one here. Then we're going to take all 3 pieces and lay them together directly on top of each other like so, with those edges folded in. So 1, 2, 3, and I'll just hold those together with a couple of pins for now, just at the edge. Then you'll need a ruler and your marking tool, and we're going to draw a line straight down the center. So if you wanted to measure that to be exact across the bottom, you can do, or if you're a little bit more confident, you can do that by eye, like so, all the way down to the end. And then we're going to sew along this line through all of the layers. In you go. So do reverse back at the start here, because there is going to be a little bit of strain under that area when we start to stuff it. And come right down to the point. It is quite bulky at this point, so go quite slowly. If your machine can't cope with the thicker fabrics, you may be able to turn the hand wheel by hand And again, just reverse backwards again. Just snip that off. So you can see we have these almost like pages of the tree, and you can actually see it starting to take shape now. So now we need to stuff it. So with the opening that you left here, you're going to take tiny pieces to start with of your toy filler. Tweezers really will help here, and push that all the way down to the point. And I'm saying use tiny pieces when you start, because if you put a big lump of toy filler in here, it'll just clump and it won't go right down to the point because it's quite fine down here. So it's going to take quite a while, you know, it's a few minutes worth to actually go around and fill all of these, but it's worth taking your time over this. So push it right down into the corner like so. You can start putting a little bit more in as you go down, but it's just a very fine amount going right into that corner. There we go. So just keep pushing it in little tiny bits until you've got every one of these full up. So you can start to see that filling up now. So you need to do that with every one of these 6 segments. As you get around to the final one, it will seem as though it's a little bit of a squish, but just keep pushing it down until you've got a nice fat end to your tree. And then we'll sew the bottom piece up. Or make sure you go right into those points as well. So small amounts, pair of tweezers, and just keep adding more and more. So as you can see, when these are really nice and tightly stuffed, and you've got your toy filler going right into the corners, and try and keep this quite even around the top, then we're going to just hand sew the bottom closed like this. And I'm just doing a little over edge stitch because you're not going to see this when your tree sits on top of its pot. So don't worry about your stitches being too neat at this point. It really doesn't matter, you're really not going to see them. So just to close the openings, and I'm going to sew straight across, whoops, from this side to this side like so. Push you in there. And of course you do that with all 6 segments. There, so let's snip off the thread. And that's how my tree's looking. Now with my little pot, this actually had a candle in it originally. I've put some pebbles in the bottom and just dribbled some hot glue over the top of there, and that's going to give it a little bit of weight. And then I spray painted the whole thing red. It was white originally. And then I'm going to take my glue gun and I'm just going to put hot glue all the way around the edge. You have to be quite quick with this because it does dry very quickly. And then sit my tree right on top and try and make sure that it's central. I've still got a little bit of wiggle time. Let's just press that down and hold it in place for a few seconds until it's stuck. And that is my little tree finished. So at this point, if you wanted to add any more decorations, maybe a ribbon around the pot, if you've got some little gems that you want to stick on there, a star on the top, some sequins, you can really dress this up however you want it to. Really make it a little bit blingy for Christmas if you like. But I think you've got a really pretty little tree. I think they'd look lovely in a row if you made a few in different sizes. But it could be useful as well because you could still use that as a pincushion. So your tree isn't necessarily just for Christmas. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial again. I hope you enjoy making yours, and I hope you make lots and lots of them. And I shall see you again very soon. Bye-bye.